Hello everyone, welcome to another live hangout here at Voice Essentials. So good to be hanging out with you today. We have got a special guest that I know you're going to really enjoy listening to as we chat specifically about emotional connection within our singing, what Philippe refers to as emotional layering. We are going to get to that in a moment. Just wanted to throw a shout out and let you kind of know a little bit of what's happening in my part of the world at the moment. And we over the last weekend have been where I live, not specifically my address, but in the city that I live, we are experiencing massive flooding. It's catastrophic in Brisbane. Really also very bad in my hometown of Lismore in New South Wales. They're right in the midst of it right now. It's really quite significant. So I really wanted to throw a shout out to all of the people that watch the show that are local here in Brisbane and in Northern Rivers of New South Wales. Thinking of you, I know. If you have been personally affected by the floods, I'm sorry to hear that, and I hope that you're able to find a way forward with it. Of course, this is all happening within the global context of what's happening in Ukraine, and we're all just devastated to be watching the news footage of the things going on over there. And so, yeah, there's and all that on top of COVID. It's life is what life is. It throws us a whole range of curveballs, and we do our best to walk our way through that. Anyway, so just wanted to let you know, yeah, we've been experiencing these floods, and it's been a big deal. And yeah, so there you go. I'm excited to get to chatting to Philippe. So I really don't want to leave it too much longer before I introduce you to Philippe. So let's do that right after this.
Sound check. Check 1, check 2.
Hello, Philippe. That is a good looking picture, and there he is.
Hello, Dan.
G'day, how are you doing?
Great, thank you.
Thank
you so much.
So good to have you
inviting
come
me on here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the show, and of course this is a mutual admirations club, because I was on your show only a couple of weeks ago, which was a real pleasure, and I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. So I'm just super stoked that you have been able to reciprocate and come on to my show today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real pleasure. It's a pleasure having you on as well. And I've been an admirer and a fan of your work and all the great things you've been doing for the global singing community for years. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And tell us, just so that for people who have never met or come into contact with yourself, I know a number of my students actually went and checked out your channel after a number of the people in my community went out and checked your channel out after, hopefully got a few more subs from it as a result when we did our interview. But tell us a bit more about Philippe. Tell us, how it is that you came to be doing this singing thing, and, tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, well, I've been doing it for a long time, to be honest. So when I think back, it's funny for me, really. It's fun. I didn't really set out, all my life to become a singer and a performer. I'd always been involved in music. My mom was a pianist, and I'd always been singing in church and here and there in different groups, and went to high school, and just things kind of fell in place. I found myself taking choir for fun, found out that I was pretty good at it, went to an audition. I didn't have anything. My friends just said, hey, you should audition while we're here. So I grabbed a song from a buddy and I sang it, and I got like a perfect score, and he was all mad about that. I mean, we're talking about, 15 years old, funny things. And then one thing led to another over time, and I got to the university. I just walked in, I really had no idea about these kind of things. I just walked into the university, knocked on the professor's door and say, "Hi, I'm Philippe. I'm here to sing for you." And he's like, "Okay." He didn't know who I was. Sat down. "What songs do you know?" I told him a song. He played it. I sang, and then he offered me a scholarship. I mean,
Wow.
did things kind of a very random way, and it was kind of meant to be.
Yeah.
And then when I found myself at the university program, I never really looked back. I just felt like I was with the right people, the right energy, and I loved singing, and it's been a passion of mine for, yeah, over 30 years now. Very funny, I was just judging a talent competition in a small town not too far away from here, and they were reading my resume. It said Philippe Hall has been performing internationally for over 30 years and done over 80 productions and thousands of performances, and he's written this book, and he's got these online courses, and he's coaching people all around the world. And I'm like, who is this guy? He sounds pretty cool. Wait a minute. So I've been there. I've done some things, and I was mainly very focused on my performing career for decades and decades and decades, and
Yeah.
and really, I remember when I was at the university, I determined before I would ever teach at a university, I wanted to go and do that. I wanted to go and live off of it. I wanted to pay my rent, pay my bills, pay my life, take care of my family based on my salary as a professional artist. And I did that for 3 decades. So in order to do that, you do have to always stay on top of the game and work, and work on your craft and hone your skills. So there's me in a nutshell. More at singingrevealed.com/about.
Very good. Yeah, you have had this really extensive professional career, and obviously, from the stuff I've seen that you've put up, and I will admit to you, you were kind enough to give me an opportunity to have a review of your emotional layering course, but with the floods that we are having right here, I've been a little preoccupied over the weekend, so I have not had a chance to dive into that. I'm looking forward to being able to do that in the future. But you've got so many learning things online, and it's almost like you're a brother from another mother. We are leading all these sort of very similar existences on opposite sides of the planet. Now, what I want to do is because obviously I want to talk to you about emotional layering, which is what you refer to it as, and I want to get to that because I think it's such an important area of our vocal performance development. But before we do, and I kind of want to use this as a segue, I want to throw the question to you that you threw at me
Right.
when we got together a couple of weeks ago on your channel, and basically the question boiled down to, what does every singer need to know? I think that's the nutshell of the question you fired at me. So, Philippe Hall, what do you think every singer needs to know when they approach their singing?
Yeah, I really thought about this question. That's what leaded me. I have a 5-year-old, so sometimes I speak 5-year-old. No, but this question, preoccupied me. So what do singers need to know? Because you look back and you think, okay, if I had known these things, 20 years ago, I could have been living my dream 20 years longer. So I came up with the 4 activities of singing, which are airflow control. You need to understand breathing and how air makes the voice work, and that you can control it. And dynamic movement potential. For me, in just summing that up, when motion stops, singing stops. You need to understand how muscles work and how to keep singing in motion, including every little moving part in there. Then we've got sound design. You need to understand that your voice is pretty miraculous. The vocal folds create multiple frequencies all at the same time, but what comes out of your mouth has nothing to do really with the vocal folds themselves. Don't we won't dive deep on that, but it has everything to do on the shape they travel through. So sound design, every style of music, my hallmark was singing crossover from, I've been in 40 operas, I've done about 50 musicals, I've done rock concerts, pop concerts. So I firmly believe you can sing any style you want to with your voice. Your voice is made to sing every style, it's up to you. But you got to understand the fundamentals of sound design. Just changing the shape of your instrument from oh to right there, for me, that's a change in sound design. Those aren't, the most beautiful tones you've ever heard. But once you understand that, you can legitimately sing any style you want to. And then now we come to the topic of the day, emotional layering. So what is that, and why did I come up with that? So I find it amazingly fascinating that our voice is layered in multiple layers and spectrums of frequencies, and that the ones we actually hear that get out are the ones that got amplified. They found the resonance spots inside the vocal tract, and they were happy about them, and they threw them out to our listeners. So the sound we hear is layered. And that's so fascinating, because people grow up and they hear a note on the piano, and you say, sing that note, and you think you're singing one note, when in reality you're singing like a whole multiples of that note all at the same time. Well, I'm absolutely convinced that there are emotional frequencies in our sound, and that's why I call it emotional layering your voice with real, tangible, recognizable, powerful emotional frequencies that every human being around the planet recognizes immediately. And emotional layering has been a huge key to my personal success. And at the end of the day, it's the most important thing and the real true reason why we sing in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, here at Voice Essentials, something that my community hear me say all the time, and that is that singing is not about perfect notes. Singing is about communication, and I think it's all too easy, isn't it, to get caught up in the the technical aspects of singing that we and it's good. I mean, I'm very passionate about technique. But
Sure.
ultimately, it's about empowering cleaner, clearer communication. Talk us through some of that emotional layering. I mean, when you're introducing a student to this concept, what do you work them through? How do you walk them along the journey of developing their ability to emotionally layer?
Yeah, it's the thing is, that is why I say that's the reason why I say it's the most neglected skill in singing, because it's not talked about a lot. And I love the title you gave for our conversation today, One More Time with Feeling. We've heard that, or we've heard put some emotion into that. Well, let's do it again with some feeling, with some passion. So everybody expects that. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
So let me just I want to give you a quick example. Okay, I want the listeners to understand that this is a skill. One, this is a skill you can learn. And two, this is scientific. I mean, it's either there or it's not. It's black and white. It's you've got it on or it's not there. And you need to know that everybody knows it. Okay, so do this example with me, and I'll explain this later. I want you to imagine an all-white room, an empty, all-white room. Now I want you to imagine in the middle of that room an all-red desk. Now I want you to imagine that on that red desk in the all-white room is a yellow vase, and in this yellow vase or vase, then you have red roses, and there's one white rose in the middle. Now I want you to imagine on the right side of this all-white room with the red desk, the yellow vase, and this bouquet of roses with one big white rose in the middle, there is a glass window that's open with a delicate curtain lightly blowing in the breeze, and you can hear the seagulls and hear the waves and smell the fresh air coming in from the ocean, the salt. And you touch the rose and feel how soft and velvety it is, and you smell it. Now, when we started, I asked you to think of an all-white room. Wasn't very real. How real is this getting for you now? You have smell, you have sound, you have touch, you have visual things. So we've just programmed the brain with details that make something real that your brain can react to and create. This is the process of programming your brain to activate emotion. And the next step we get into is say, who gave you those roses? What do they mean? When you touch that rose, what else are you touching in your past? The person, the smell of the beach and the sand, and all these details are going to program your brain with specific things that it can react to, because the brain doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy. It only knows what we put in. And that is basically what we're doing with emotional layering. This is what actors do all the time. This is the most powerful way that you can create real emotion. Because one more time with feeling or put some emotion in that usually leaves us feeling like, oh, what do I do? I thought I was doing it. And then we feel bad and we feel guilty and we start shutting down. So there's some major, major advantages of developing these skills in emotional layering. And I've put 14 different techniques in this course. And to my knowledge, it's the only course in the world that is dedicated specifically to help singers with these techniques.
It's sounding like it's very grounded in dramatic art, theater context, and which I love. One of my favorite classes in my undergraduate degree was an acting class with a teacher. His name was Joe Sabello, and and we would do these improv classes with him, and he was very much into whatever the mind puts there, the mind can take away, and really directing us to the power of the mind. But he had this thing that we would do. Our improv class was exactly that. He would say, okay, we're doing improv today. Who wants to do an improv? And so we had been trained or everyone put their hand up, because that's what you're supposed to do in the arts. You always put your hand up and say, I'll throw caution to the wind. But he would get to you would get to the end of your improv, and he had this saying, and I can hear him saying it now, finish it, like it was, because you would feel like you'd finished, but then you'd be left going, because Joe's cry of finish it would go up, and it was very much talking to this idea of a disconnect between the story that had been told in the improv and the emotional layering, if you will, to what we, the students, had or had not achieved. And there was no greater reward in my entire university life than to get to the end of it only ever happened to me once, get to the end of an improv and Joe Sabello's just going, there was no finish it. It was his way of saying that was connected. You had connected that emotional layering. I must admit, when I reflect on that experience, I'm not sure I know how or what Joe had decided I had achieved in said moment, because it didn't feel a lot different to some of the previous attempts. But nonetheless, where I kind of want to go with that is, I think it's we often take our students, don't we, to this theoretical / introduction of the practical of doing this. But then when it comes to them putting that on stage and actually having a student take that red rose in the yellow vase in the white room that has a window where the sea breeze is coming in, how do we encourage a student to develop that ability to put that on stage and convey that what is ultimately an unstated message, the subtext of the narrative, to the audience? How does a student develop that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And honestly, that is what this course I've created is dedicated to, because it is a skill. And I've been performing around the world. I've performed in 28 different countries. And I was, in the beginning, not very good at this. I was kind of known as the technician, and I would just stand there and sing, and I could not loosen up. So I had to work at this at the university level, and it took me 3 years before I felt confident in my performance ability. So how do you get there? And that's exactly the process I'll take you through in this course. Is, first of all, you've got 14 different layering techniques. We work from the inside out, by asking the brain and the right questions. So it's all key about asking yourself the right questions, leading questions, and just going down. And in this, I've given a lot of examples of questions you can ask. One of the most basic and fundamentally important question is, who is singing? And people will generally say, oh, it's my character is this, and this is what they're doing in the show, and they give me a character description. No. Who is singing? The answer is, it's always you. It's always you singing. Nobody else is going to be singing for you. It's always you. So that's the first main important question to answer. And then you need to get into the following questions. Well, who are you? Is it you right now in real life? Is it you in 20 years? Is it you as a young child? Is it you, fantasy you on Mars? Is it you, stockbroker? It's always you. But now you have to decide who you are. And that works very well in the setting of a piece, but you have to decide who you are when you're singing this song. And there's obviously difference when you're on stage in a production, but it's just as valid for singer-songwriters. Singer-songwriters tend to have an advantage because they're usually inspired by something that happened to them.
Yeah.
Right? So they are singing about their experience and they know the details. What if you don't know the details? What if you're covering the song? Then this is where it becomes very powerful, because your experience, your life experience is different. And so your result will be different when you use the emotional layering techniques. And I do want to touch on some things, because why does anybody need to develop this? Well, first of all, I want you to consider that you're spending 99% of your time at least working on your technique. And now I want you to remember the reason why you are training technique in the first place, and that is to communicate emotionally, because perfect technique and perfect pitch don't get you on the callback list. They don't book you gigs. They don't get you through the castings, and they're ultimately not really going to build up your following and sell your records. So it's something we strive for, but if we lose focus of why we're doing it, then it's really not serving us. So master technician that doesn't know how to connect with the audience is really a very boring performer.
Yeah.
And that's really sad to say. And that I was there in the beginning of my career, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand that I'm a much better technician. I'm a much better singer. Why are these other people getting hired?
Yeah.
Why am I not getting the jobs? It's obvious to everybody I sing better, but that's not what's important. That's just not what's important. It is, can you sing and touch the heart of your listener and connect with them and take them on a journey?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What when we're really deep diving into this, I wonder if you can unpack for us perhaps what the word vulnerability might, what part does vulnerability as a performer play in this process? Being
It's so
vulnerable to the
important.
audience.
Vulnerability is so important, and most of us are afraid to be vulnerable. We grow up, and when we're vulnerable, we get kicked. We get stepped on,
Yeah.
If we're really showing our weaknesses, that's what we usually equate with vulnerability,
Yeah.
is letting your guard down. But that is not the same kind of vulnerability. So I've got some things I want to communicate to you, and then we'll go right to this. But you need to understand, emotional layering improves your singing immediately. Doesn't matter what level you're at, it will improve everything you do immediately. And we're going to talk about that. And it is also the true reason for singing. It allows us to have powerful communication. It's what everybody is looking for in the casting business, in booking your gigs, and gives you absolute authenticity and genuineness, originality, and your vocal identity comes from this. It combats stage fright. So this ties right in there. So when we are considering being vulnerable, we want to be transparent about our feelings. That's really what vulnerability is. It's saying, this is how I feel. Now squash it, love it, throw it away, put it on a plaque, but this is my truth. So emotional layering helps you to express your truth, because you are completely unique as a singer, and your biggest strength as a singer is your uniqueness.
Yeah.
If you follow the techniques of emotional layering, it gives you focus on stage, and that combats your stage fright and nerves, because if you follow your emotional layering path and you activate these things, you are so focused on that and going on your journey and being in this moment that everything else becomes secondary. You're not focusing on technique, and you shouldn't be on stage. You are focusing on your job as a singer, which is to be a great storyteller,
Yeah.
a musical storyteller. And when you have this focus and you have clarity about it, the stage fright tends to just drop and fall away, and you're able to really feel and communicate these feelings authentically. And that is true vulnerability. It's just being transparent about how you feel about your message and saying, here it is, love it, hate it, but I'm giving it to you.
The thing I learned, and it took me a long time to learn it, as it does most people. There weren't any online course, 14's module online courses like yours to help me at the time. It took me a long time to learn to be vulnerable on stage, and to know that when I truly presented authentic emotion, that generally speaking, the audience response is to also open up as an audience, as a collective, and go, us too, me too. And it takes time to learn, and it takes a number of experiences, positive experiences, to learn that is going to be the outcome, that your audience is going to respond in kind when you make that sense of connection.
Yes.
What do you generally encourage students? So how do you encourage a student to practice this? Because we do want to put it on stage ultimately, but a lot of students, most of us are spending far more time in our practice space than we are on a stage.
Yeah.
What's the process, without taking people through the entire online course, but give us some little bite-sized pieces of the steps that you're taking students through practice-wise, to developing this emotional layering that you're referring to.
Sure. Well, this is a fun part about the course, is for every layering technique that I share with you in the course, I have a before and after, a couple before and after videos and the entire coaching session. So you can see how we got from point A to point B that quickly. So it's really about being willing to take the time to do it. And the more you do it, the faster you get at it, right? I don't know if any of you out there play the piano. If you're playing just a 5-note C to G and back down, right? How fast can you do that? And can you do that in perfect rhythm? And how long did it take you to do that? And then when you learn to cross over, that third finger, none of that you could do quickly in the beginning. It took time. Right? And imagine, first time your vocal coach said to you, do a, we were all going, right? It wasn't a natural thing, an SOBT exercise. But it's first of all and foremost, being willing to take the time to do this and understanding how powerful it is. I think that is the first step. I work with clients from the inside out, programming the brain. And that sounds so high tech, but it is high tech, and that's what's super cool about it. But it's not that difficult. It does take time. You've got to ask yourself the right questions, and you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to look for the answers, and you have to write them down, and then you have to practice. You have to practice doing it. It's just like we have when we talked last time on my show, Voice Masters, we talked about a vocal warm-up, right? What is a warm-up? And I like to call it activation. So we're activating the voice, right? We're activating what we need to sing. So emotionally, we need to activate. We need to activate our emotions before we start singing. Otherwise, it's too late. And it's so apparent. So we're going to activate by programming the mind, by asking ourselves simply questions. Asking ourselves questions, and I have 14 different worksheets in there that will guide you through many, many questions to get you to the answers that produce an emotional response. And the other techniques are working from the outside in. And this is so fun because I work with universal facial expressions. And I wasn't aware of this really until not so many years ago, that human beings communicate visually through our facial expressions the same way everywhere around the world. And there is a researcher that spent 40 years dedicating his life to this and found out that there are very key facial markers. And when you make these facial markers, it activates the emotional chemicals in your brain, and any other human being that sees you making those physical markers, it activates that emotional response in their brain. And it's subconscious. You can't defend against it. It's whether you want it or not, it happens. Wow. So let's do the fun thing and just you tell me which of these smiles is authentic. There's smile 1. Here comes smile 2. And here comes smile number 3. Okay, so the physical markers of a real smile are, of course, we know what the mouth looks like. You got to lift your cheeks, and you have to allow for the little wrinkles. That's a real smile, and everybody knows that. And if you are looking at this feed right now, and you just make this smile, lift your cheeks, squint your eyes a little bit, and you hold it, and then you let it go, you're already feeling better. You're already feeling better.
I'm struggling to let it go.
Yeah, it's so much easier to smile. So instantaneously, you just communicated authentic happiness to your audience. Yeah. And not only that, you activated authentic happiness within yourself. And that is the authenticity in it. So we're going to work from the outside in and the inside out. Do you remember, I think we talked about, you shared this experience. So when I was doing my master's study at the conservatory in Germany, and I was working with a director for opera and theater, and he was working. He did master classes. He was, came and did master classes with the singers, and I watched him work with a lot of different singers from all over the world. Some of them barely spoke German, and very little English. But he worked with him on these techniques, on similar emotional layering techniques. He just didn't call it anything at all. He just asked people to do things. But I knew that's a director. He's using acting techniques. I watched all of these singers, regardless of where they were from or what they were working on. He could get everybody to improve their singing through using acting techniques. Their runs got faster and cleaner, their high notes got cleaner, their phrasing got longer. There was power in the singing, and he didn't know a thing about technique, right? And it worked for me as well. And that's all he ever did with all the singers. He just worked with them on what I call emotional layering, and their singing always improved, always. Have you experienced anything like this? Seen this yourself? Seen it in your clients? Worked with other master classes?
It's certainly the case that when we have a really strong body-mind connection, not just technically, but also emotionally, metaphysically, there's no question in my mind from having observed this and experienced this, that the voice is empowered when it does have that sense of connectivity across all of the various aspects of our human existence. So no, that's definitely the case.
Yeah, I guess the answer to your question is how do I start working with singers, and how do we get them to do this? It's really very first and foremost, singers need to accept that this is so important.
Yeah.
You have to validate it. You have to realize that if you're not doing this probably the most important thing you can do with singing, if you're not giving it at least 10% of your practice time, you're neglecting the most important part about singing, and that is powerful communication. So what would happen, I wonder, in the world if singers started dedicating 50% of their time to technique and 50% of their time to interpretation and emotional layering? I think we'd have an amazing transformation in singers' levels. But it's gone through, we have all this research and wonderful tools and pedagogy, the scientific development, not only science and research, but scientific development of how to teach. That's all been really very influential over the past few decades. But perhaps we've forgotten a little bit about the reason why we're singing in the first place. And that's what I'd like to encourage singers to do. I worked for months exclusively with singers on emotional layering and never even mentioned technique.
Yeah.
And they get so good. Now, I don't neglect technique forever, because technique allows us the freedom to express ourselves. So it's very, very important. But when you realize how important this is, then you will become willing to spend time at it. And part of the courses is I do a master class personally with everybody that uses it once a month. And this last master class, one of the singers said to me, how long will it take me to just prepare one song? So it's a kind of a catch-22. I say, well, I spent 12 months preparing one role and at least 10 months working on one aria before. So sometimes you do need to spend a lot of time. I just wanted to tell her that. But then, of course, I understood the reason why she was asking me this question. She said, if I spend all this time and going through all of these layering techniques in your course for every song I sing, I'm never going to be able to learn a song. It's going to take me 2 months every time I want to learn a song. So what I want to communicate is, yes, there are 14 layering techniques in this course, but they're individually very, very powerful. So you don't have to feel like you have to master everything for every song. You just got to get started. You will get better at this, and the more you do it, the faster you get. In the beginning, you might be working with 2 techniques on one song, and then 2 different techniques on another song. But the next time you even go to sing a song, you'll be thinking about those. They're going to become muscle memory. They're going to just become a part of what you're doing. And it's when you discover how powerful it is in your singing, what a huge difference it makes, and the response other people you get from other people, then you're going to love this, and it will always be a part of what you do. Because I cannot do it. I cannot sing without using this, because I would feel like I would not be being transparent. I would not be vulnerable. I would not be honest. I wouldn't be expressing anything. I just, here's a piano,
Maybe,
and
maybe a new term is emotional muscle memory.
emotional muscle memory. Well, do you know that this is actually a real thing? It's called emotional recall.
Yeah.
And we use that as part of what I ask people to do in the course, is say, can you, depending on how you answer certain questions, can you connect this to a real life experience that's a safe experience for you, because your body remembers how it felt.
Yeah.
You can connect those lines, boom. So you do have emotional memory. It's just going to be, you're just going to love it. And when you get stuck on a song, you might just work on your emotional expression for a while and to get unstuck. It's very, very powerful. Let's talk about I'm sure you've experienced this, but have you ever had clients that are really, really great singers, but they just don't book gigs or they don't get hired?
I've had a number of students over the years where certainly their experience has been that they're not landing the roles and what have you. And often the work I do with those clients is not around, okay, we've got to get better with the technique. The technique's all there. It's got to come back to, and I always bring them back. Well, let's talk about your sense of connection with what you are delivering. What do you do with your students who are finding that a challenge?
Yeah, first of all, I just talk about it with them openly and say, I've been there. I've been there at auditions where I didn't get a callback. I've been at auditions where I got a callback, and I've had phases where I got callbacks, but I was never booking the gig. I was never the man, so to speak. And you have to realize that you just have to think about it just like a human being. If you go in to watch live music anywhere, or you go to watch a show or a competition, it's never, your favorite singer is almost never the singer that had the best technique. I mean, we always admire that singer, and believe me, the optimal, what our goal should be is converging amazing technique with amazing emotional layering. That is, every big star that you love does that day in, day out. So let's not discount that. That is the pinnacle goal. But we always prefer the artist that puts their heart into it, and just reaches out and touches us and gets us involved. We are so ready to forgive any little mistake that artist makes because we love them. And almost always, everybody else in the room is feeling the same way. So if you want to have your singing, not only be selfish about it. Do you want your singing to improve? This is the fastest, the easiest thing you can do without learning any other techniques. Bam, this is going to improve your singing immediately. It always works. It works for beginners, advanced singers. It always works. Singing gets much, much better. It lowers your stage fright. It helps you communicate. It builds your audience. It gets you hired. It helps you discover your authenticity, because as a singer, the most powerful tool you have is you. It's you. You are unique. Nobody else is like you, and nobody else has a voice like you. Nobody. And what makes me is just me. And that's the most valuable thing I have. And that sounds so, for sometimes it used to sound so arrogant to me, but actually it's being very vulnerable and very humble. With all my faults and my imperfections, what I have to offer the world is me, is my unique experience, is my way of thinking, my way of responding, my curiosity, and how I solve this, and sharing that. So in your singing, the most powerful tool you have is your authenticity, your honesty. Your originality starts with you, and that's based on your real life experience. If you had a twin and they experienced almost everything with you every minute of every day, you would still have a different thought process going on in your mind, and that's going to go into your voice, and that's going to lead you to maybe do a little riff on a note, maybe hold it out longer, maybe cut it off, maybe be a little bit louder here, there, have, some vocal effect in there, a fry, some breathiness, some distortion. But if we're just throwing those little pieces in there, then it's not authentic.
Yeah.
It's got to be the result of your emotional layering. It's got to be the result of you actually knowing what you're saying and how that makes you feel.
Yeah.
And then you can take people on a journey. And that's so much fun. If you don't mind me, Dan, talking about this, I want to make this clear too, because often we get this wrong. We think that our audience needs to be going on the same journey that we're going on, or we ourselves need to go on the same journey as the original artist. That's not the case. And once again, it's all about you and how you think about it. Every song you sing, you need to be going on your own journey, your own emotional journey, your own personal journey. And when you go on that journey, you could be singing a song that's about cars, and you could be literally in the tops and the mountains in your head, and nobody will know, but you'll be on a real journey, and the people that listen to you are going to go on their journey, right? Just it's very logical. We go watch a movie, we listen to a song, everybody's on their own journey, but they'll only go on their own personal journey if you are on yours.
Yes.
That's the real key part right there.
Yeah, absolutely. It is all about and often, we're talking with students, if you are not in the moment, if you are not experiencing the moment, then your audience haven't got a chance. You first must be the genesis of that experience, and then they bring their own story that then colors their own experience. But first and foremost, the singer must, be that point of origin for that experience. Believe it or not, I've just looked down at the time and gone, oh, okay, we are out of time. Is there any? And I've just seen Mackenzie has written a great question, and it's a question that we're just not going to be able to unpack, because I know Philippe would have a really detailed answer. It's basically, Philippe, the question speaks to the idea that in a musical theatre piece that Mackenzie is developing, where the character has experienced abuse and then is killed, and she has neither experienced abuse, which I'm very glad to hear, Mackenzie, nor has she ever been killed. And so, it speaks to this idea of, which is probably a slightly more advanced level of what we've been talking about, where we start to express experiences and emotions that are not common ground, that are not that don't have a point of history for the singer. And I would dare say, Philippe, that the best thing that Mackenzie could do could be look into your course and have a look at enrolling and working through, because I'm sure you cover that sort of stuff in the course.
Yeah, absolutely. It would definitely help. I mean, but just know that you need to stay safe emotionally. It does say you had experienced these, aside from being killed, experienced traumatic abuse in your life. You don't want to resurrect that. You don't want to bring that up. You'll be completely dysfunctional on stage. So we don't want to dredge up severe traumatic experiences. But there are ways to look at you've got to find connection points in your life. I'm sure your life hasn't been, happy roses every day, all of your life, right? You've had your own negative experiences. So you don't have to have experienced the exact same things as the character in the piece, but you do have to create your personal story and create your own personal emotional response to these kind of a situation. And just as a tip for you, you don't even have to be thinking about abuse. Even in the middle of the piece, it's for actors, it's called having secrets. It's about turning on the right kind of emotion. And everybody, like I said, the audience is going to be going on their journey.
Yeah.
And in a piece, they have all these other details. So you could be upset about losing your dog, or maybe you fell down and got, there's just so many ways to connect things to emotional layers that have nothing to do with portraying real life trauma and drama on stage. And actors actually told, don't resurrect those horrible experiences if you have experienced them. And you've got to find experiences that are similar or create a similar emotional response.
And I'm glad we were able to end on that that caution, because I think it is a really important caution to hear, and it's also directs us back to the idea that it's a really positive thing to do an online course like yours, to do some classes, some workshops where you can learn to do this safely, and connect with this emotional layering that we've been talking about. Philippe, thank you for coming onto the show. We are out of time, but I've really enjoyed, hearing some of, as you've been talking, just some of the things that, I'd forgotten that I'd learnt, in my uni days, or just some different ways of explaining things. Really helpful. I've learnt so much from our conversation today, and just want to say thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, Dan. I prepared a special promo code for your audience. This is not available on my website. It's just for your audience. So I want to support you guys. I want everybody to get their hands on this information. It does have the power to change lives. It changed mine. It helped me have a 30-year career. And we're all expected to be able to do it as singers, but we better figure out how it's done.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yes, everyone, you can find that that special link to the course in the description section of this video. So I really encourage you to go and check it out. As Philippe just laid out, it is so important in the development of your singing when it comes to performance. We are, today was our first live guest for 2022. What a way to kick it off. And that's what we do here at Voice Essentials. We have some of the best people from across the globe who, just like Philippe, share of their wealth of experience, expertise, and just give it to us so freely. And we are so thankful to ones like Philippe for coming onto the show. So hit the thumbs up button if you've enjoyed today's show. Go and visit Philippe's. Do yourself a favor. Go and visit Philippe's channel and subscribe. Philippe is also getting wonderful guests onto the show. I was one of them a couple of weeks ago, but some really good people. And go and check out the course. I think you'll really enjoy it. Next week, we are back for a Q&A. We do our Q&A every couple of weeks. And then in 2 weeks' time, which you will be notified of if you subscribe and hit the white bell icon, my very good friend Jeffrey Ashenden is coming onto the show, and we're going to have a really great chat with Jeff in 2 weeks. But until then, I hope you stay safe. If you are in flood-affected areas here in my part of the world, really thinking of you. Stay safe, stay dry, and whatever you do, keep singing. And as I always say, which is, I don't know how appropriate this is, but I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.